Day 8. Day 8, everyone. Resident Evil Damnation. Here we go. So this one, rather than being slow-paced under any circumstance, it's fast-paced constantly. Takes place in a different place. Takes place in not America. It's like Russia or something. Soviet something. It's a lot. So this kicks off the Leon Chronicles. We no longer get to see what Jill's doing. No one cares about Chris right now. Ada's here because she's literally attached to his butt crack. So anytime you see Leon, usually Ada is like right in the back. So those are the people that that matter. There are different perspectives, but not really many that matter as a story point because we only want to see Leon 24/7. Hannigan's here, and it's crazy because in Resident Evil 4, I could have sworn Hannigan looked very close to ethnic. She may not have been black. I thought she was. She could have been Hispanic, Afro-Latino. I don't really care. But now, since Resident Evil 6 and this movie, she is confirmed Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon of the Caucasus Mountains. So yet another person who you really didn't have to make white, but for some reason she is. Maybe you can say she's Asian just like you say Rebecca's Asian when there's no proof. You just say it. So I guess we're supposed to say it's okay. Excella could have been Asian. Literally so many people. Like, this is an Asian franchise. Most of these people should be Asian, to be honest. And not just, like I said a long time ago, Snow White of the Seven Dwarfs Asian. I'm talking about any Asian, really. Thai, Laotian, any Asian could be, but you guys aren't ready for that. But we got these Anglo-Saxons from France and from Italy, but I digress. So Leon gets stuck in between doing his job and these freedom fighters while people are using viruses like weapons, like they didn't want to happen. Literally, these movies basically show us what happens when the viruses get in the hands of people. And now liquors are used like zombies, and there's no zombies in this movie. They're Las Plagas hosts. They can wield weapons. They have a mind somewhat of their own, and they're being controlled mostly through people above them, like citizens. It's insane. It's really interesting. This movie could have been interesting if it just for a second took itself out of trying to appeal to e-boys or those shoot 'em up, bang 'em up boys in general who don't care about the lore. They're not even casuals. They couldn't tell you whose last name was Valentine or anything. They just see, ooh, lizard go scratch, scratch. Ooh, tyrant go boom. And stuff like that. Resident Evil was never like that. And y'all keep saying, oh, it's got to evolve. And we really don't need that crowd. We had the crowd that we had because that's how it became so successful. Survival horror, not action-packed. And like I said before, just because I'm like, okay, cool, there's action. There should be action. There's a gun. When a gun is shot, when blood is spilt, action. But guess what? There can be too much action. It can look too much like a movie. It is cinematic, yes. Every Resident Evil from 0 to Resident Evil 8 has had some form, some variation of cinematography, which made it look like a movie. As the years went by, you guys took critiques very strangely, and you created these movie game movies where I'm barely doing anything myself, and I'm on this singular path. Resident Evil Code Veronica had a straightforward beginning, middle, end path, but still there was exploration that you had to do in a certain way, and you could even try different ways. There were different ways to crack that egg. In a different way, Resident Evil 4 is like that, but there's no different way. You just keep going, you keep going, and you keep going. It's a long game. It's whatever. I don't care about how long it is. It's just boring to me. I don't care how action-packed it is. That's not what Resident Evil is. If you want action-packed, go play Call of Duty. Go literally play anything else. Go play Destiny. Go play something else. I'm here for my puzzles. I'm here for the ambiance. I'm here for the music when you need music. I'm here for the sounds when you don't have music. I'm not here for someone saying, what are you buying? It was cute in Resident Evil 4. It was cute. In Resident Evil 8, it's pathetic. Nothing against the dude that plays the voice. I actually liked him among everybody. I liked Lady Dimitrescu, and I'll talk more about the voice acting and whatnot when I make my video, my review about Resident Evil 8. Because I've talked about it, but I'm going to do a video, and then that'll be it. I'm going to be done talking about that crap. But literally almost every voice actor did a very good job, and I feel so sorry for them to have to be associated with such crap, because it's not good. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Damnation. I just really don't like it. It's too much action. Like I said, there's more lickers here than there are zombies. And there's no zombies. There's just Las Plagas people, basically. It connects from 4 to 5 and goes into 6. So we have to understand that Las Plagas exists. And we have to understand that Leon understands what's going on because he's seen it before. He gets in a tussle with these Russian dudes. And there's this comedic relief dude who looks like a shark. He looks like a shark, like that dude from Shark Tales that Jack Black played. And he's really funny, and I like him. He's one of the only parts of the movie that I like. The only action parts that I thought were not only believable, Ada Wong's action sequence I felt looked way better and cooler than when I saw Leon doing anything. I just don't see the appeal that Leon has, other than if someone had the same characteristics as Leon through being a male and being white. Nothing's appealing to me. Even Chris Redfield, who is also a white male, he has some sort of family connection. He has connection, he has love, he has compassion, and yeah, sometimes he can't get the job done, but that's out of his control. When it is in his control, he has always showed up to the occasion. All the slander of Chris not being reliable is disgusting. And movies like Damnation and Vendetta make it seem like Leon's better than he really is. And just looking at the games, he is not as important as everyone else. Sure, in Resident Evil Code Veronica, Claire emailed him and he talked to Chris, and Chris went to go save her. But Chris went to go save Claire. Leon didn't get off his duff and go save Claire. And I don't care what he was doing. I don't care if he was doing Damnation when that was going on. I don't care. I don't. I just see the misogynistic appeal, and I think it's interesting. I just saw an article talking about Infinite Darkness, people talking about, oh, no one should discuss politics. Well, if you didn't want us to discuss politics, then maybe you shouldn't have put politics in your stupid game, and then you shouldn't have made a series about it, because guess what? Resident Evil is drenched in politics. Anti-capitalism, corporations going crazy, people gaining power, controlling that, trying to hold on to that power. Some of the BOWs are literally called tyrants. Don't speak to me about not talking about politics. You know nothing. Whoever knows nothing about Resident Evil and is just some loser scrub that has to face the fact that there's things wrong with the Resident Evil franchise, and a lot of people are talking about it. People are like, oh, what do you mean women do this? There's Jill, there's Ada, yes. And on this channel, I have always discussed the problems that arise with Ada Wong. What's interesting about where does Ada Wong always fit in? She is literally dangled by the testicles of Leon S. Kennedy. She is never allowed to be on her own. And that's real interesting if you ever try to discuss to me or pull up to me in defense of not having this conversation. Well, Ada Wong had her own campaign in Resident Evil 6, so it doesn't matter if she was alone there. Leon S. Kennedy was still in that game. Leon S. Kennedy was still in Resident Evil 4. There is a problem with her having to lean on being in a Leon game just because that's where she started. Jill has been able to live separate from Chris somewhat. Claire has been able to have more independence as a character. However, like I said, there are issues. I'm not saying that ruins its ability to be enjoyed. I enjoy Resident Evil Code Veronica. I hate how they make it seem like she's some wailing widow when Steve Burnside dies. And I don't appreciate the fact that Rebecca Chambers is all of a sudden Asian now. And now that we all know that Rebecca Chambers is this damsel from Vendetta, she's Asian. It's problematic. And if, like I said in previous videos, if you're not comfortable or if you're not ready to have these conversations about these things that you enjoy as well on this earth with other people that don't look like you, that don't look like Leon S. Kennedy, then you are not ready to have this conversation and you need to exit. And then maybe you need to not talk about it at all because you're not ready to have this conversation. You're not mature enough. Maybe you're too young. Maybe you need to do more research on your own before you start having conversations about this and being mad and saying, oh, well, get woke, go broke. Look at all this woke stuff. Woke. It's only woke when it's not white and straight. I think it's real interesting that you love to talk about how woke things are unless they're white. If Cole Young had been a white man to replace, they would have some people would have said, of course, I understand the diehard fans such as myself who wanted Johnny Cage to be inside the Mortal Kombat live action movie. But if he were white, people would have been upset. You can't answer that because we don't live in that timeline. but I guarantee you it would have been a lot less people. Even though there is a form of privilege that comes with being certain Asian because of light skin being more acceptable in society, there are still issues. If you guys have not seen that episode of Fairly Odd Parents where they turned into blobs and he was still discriminating against blobs, saying, oh, I'm a smooth blob, and everyone looked the exact same. That's the society we're living in. Regardless if you are in a situation where you are more likely to get jobs, you are still going to be discriminated against if you are non-white. So yeah, sorry to go into this, but it's just real interesting when I, as a black woman who plays Resident Evil, have to hear some random loser scrub who knows absolutely nothing about the eugenics that goes on in Resident Evil. Literally, the tyrants are called tyrants. What is a tyrant? We associate tyranny with kings and queens. So don't tell me that we shouldn't talk about politics when we discuss Resident Evil. That's what you guys made this franchise on. So if you weren't ready to have that conversation, if you weren't ready for other people to have that conversation in your stead, then you shouldn't have made a Netflix original series based on this franchise. Maybe you should have made your own crap instead of taking from someone else's greatness for a money grab because everyone is hopped up on Lady Dimitrescu's breast. I don't know. That's just me. Netflix. That's just me. So as I was saying, Damnation is not good. Leon goes through this whole situation. A lot of unbelievable action occurs, and people can talk about, oh, it's unbelievable. It's really interesting how it's too unbelievable when it's a woman doing certain things. But when Leon S. Kennedy does it, it's a cool thing. You want to be him. And, oh, well, the Academy taught him how to drop kick a licker. The Academy taught him how to drop kick a tyrant, how to dodge a tyrant's fist. Really interesting. Speaking of tyrants, there is a tyrant in this one, thank goodness, because I've been very much missing tyrants in this whole entire marathon that I've been talking about. As tyrants finally make a return, I'm still lacking hunters. I don't see any hunters. I don't see any spiders. I don't see anything that would have been easy to put in. But we continuously keep bringing in these liquors. I'm really here's a new thing. How about you just not use them? Ironically, liquors stopped occurring in Resident Evil a little bit ago, but there is a mold creature in Resident Evil 7 that looks similar to a liquor, but does not have the liquor tongue. It just moves as such because you guys needed something else, because obviously Resident Evil 7's enemies are very scarce and unoriginal. They're just blobs. There's big blob, there's little blob, there's one-arm blob, there's fat blob that explode. And then you've got liquor blob with no tongue. Wow. While Resident Evil 1 had the liquors, had a tyrant, had tons of other enemies, spiders, things that I'm not thinking of. Resident Evil 0, the Eliminators. When are we ever going to see the Eliminators again? You'd think in Damnation, when you've got all these issues going on and all this stuff and whatnot, Las Plagas had nothing to do with liquors. Liquors were made a while ago with the T virus. Not even the T Veronica virus had liquors. I don't remember any liquors in Resident Evil Code Veronica. I remember a lot of, even the Albinoid could have made a return. I've yet to see the Albinoid. Albinoid is one of the least favorited because it looks very strange. And I'm not saying that everyone's asking for the Albinoid. I'm just saying, can you please stop with these liquors? I'm kind of getting sick of seeing these liquors. I am begging for an albinoid, and the albinoid looks so dum-dums. It looks like it needs a head, but it doesn't have one. But as I said before, Ada Wong's melee with the Russian president or whatever, she is so spot on. It's the best action you're going to get that doesn't look like complete hog water. Yes, this is fiction. I understand it's fiction. Do you understand it's fiction? Before you say that things don't make sense, and when I say things don't make sense, when I'm speaking, I mean logically within this universe that I'm referring to. So I don't need a really good reason, a reason for a woman to be drop kicking or doing whatever, because guess what? This is fiction. So even if you think women are weaklings, you can still think that in your home, but Resident Evil doesn't have to abide by those rules. Jill Valentine does not have to be excluded because you guys know she's very powerful and she's very strong. But you guys insist on putting Rebecca Chambers in Vendetta and throwing away Claire Redfield after one movie in favor of Leon getting his own standalone movie aside Ada, who cannot live or exist in any way, shape, or form without having Leon S. Kennedy somewhere near her. I think that's very interesting. Resident Evil Damnation is it seems very quick. Even though Resident Evil Degeneration was based on Resident Evil 2, Damnation feels like it's its own thing. I still accept that it's original. Even though I don't like it, I still give it points for being original. There is always a rebellious thing where you're going against the government. There are tons of these stories in our society, but I believe that this one is told pretty decently well. And it's just another throwaway. It's another dive movie that doesn't connect to the games at all, really, except the viruses and whatnot, like just in-universe stuff. And I'm fine with that. It just seems really interesting that every time Ada has something to do, she just so happens to star-crossed lover type situation. What I will say about their romance is it's okay here. It's way better, but I think it's only way better because we get to see monologues. Because in a game, we really don't want to see all that nonsense. We want to play the game. If you're going to pull a Kingdom Hearts 3 and just give us a movie, either just make a movie, which is what this movie is, or give us more gameplay, way more gameplay. For every 1 minute of a cutscene I have to play, I should have like 10 minutes of gameplay for every 1 minute of movie that I gotta freaking sit in here when I paid $60 to play this. Like, I'm not gonna pay $60 for no movie, okay? And I didn't get no popcorn, but whatever. So honestly, these movies are made, their only reason for existing is to give more context and more background to what has been going on with Leon, because he does not appear in all the games like most people do. Jill was in first one, third one, and fifth one, in Revelations in between. Claire was in the second one. She was in Code Veronica. She was in Revelations 2. She has connection to Chris. Chris was in 1. He was in 5. Sheva gets a raw deal. All the ethnic people get the raw deal, which is another issue that they need to fix soon. Carlos, we never see Carlos again. The only reason why people shipped Carlos and Jill now is because no one cared about Carlos a long time ago. By no one, I mean the people who Capcom listened to. The people who they're listening to make a Resident Evil 4 remake, which I have a video about why Code Veronica should get a remake and why Resident Evil 4 should literally never be made again. Link is in the description for the Resident Evil playlist, and on that playlist there is that video. It's really easy to navigate. So basically, at the end of all this, we know that Leon is a soldier. He's a person who works for the U.S. and does things not in the U.S. It's the same, almost a similar, not the exact same thing, because he's not looking for nobody's daughter. He's not hindered like, Claire was in the first Degeneration. But he does have to go to a different place that's not America and do things and be sneaky for America. And I think that's basically the bottom line for Leon. And I think it's very interesting and hilarious that that's basically his premise. And that's the character he is. And it's what he stands for. The character Leon S. Kennedy. I'm not saying he should be thrown away. I'm saying I think it's interesting that everyone's fine with Leon being put in the forefront while actual real Resident Evil characters that are more important than Leon get backburnered. I want Leon to be backburnered the way that Jill Valentine is right now as we speak. The way that Claire Redfield is becoming backburnered. The way that Chris was literally slandered to make Ethan a better person, to make Leon look like a better person. I want Sheva to come back while Leon takes a freaking seat. I want Carlos to come back while Leon takes a freaking seat. If you must, you can have Carlos and Leon. I really, like I said in one of my other videos, I say that a lot, but I'm just referring, if you guys watch all these videos, if you're up to date, that's cool. But in my previous videos, I talked about how Resident Evil 4's premise doesn't really make any sense, and it kind of doesn't make any sense here, but it's interesting because they don't At least in Resident Evil 4, they spoke a different language. But here, they don't speak a different language because it wouldn't make sense. In the game, it's easier to get away with that because you can just shoot them and you don't have to talk to them. In a movie, you can't. They're just going to sit there and stare at each other. There's going to be no conflict. There's going to be no irony. There's going to be nothing that they can bounce off each other if they don't speak the same language. So I completely understand why they didn't speak a different language, why they weren't speaking Russian or anything. But the voice acting was good. It was Matthew Mercer or whatever. It wasn't Mercier. I prefer Mercier, but Mercer is fine. Either one of those guys I'm fine with being Leon. He's not like Allison Court, like Roger Craig Smith type of, I would like them. But if literally any of those Mercer dudes is fine. He was the only one they actually cared about to sound like anybody. Again, I'm going to keep saying this till the cows come home. Or until, hey, guess what? I can stop saying this. I am really getting tired of saying it. And if you're tired of hearing it, as much as you're tired of hearing it, I am so tired of saying it, tired of having to say it. But it's real interesting that things are woke and things are too much to bear when there's any ethnicity at all. But everyone gets to be white. Yeah, this is Russia, whatever. Everyone can be white, but Ada Wong's voice actress is white. I think that's real interesting. That's real interesting. Things are only woke when they're not white. But let's talk about the staples. I honestly just, if you want to watch this movie, you can. It's not a good movie. It's not a good movie. I enjoyed Degeneration more than I enjoyed Damnation. And I am not looking forward to watching Vendetta, especially knowing how y'all treat Rebecca. When even though she is a weakling, she is a weakling. You made her very weak. She can't even push things in Resident Evil 0. Claire can push things in Resident Evil Code Veronica. It's not a woman thing. Jill Valentine could dodge Nemesis. She was that fast because she was trained. She was a STARS member. So Leon S. Kennedy just being off screen for a few dozen games and then coming back and being able to drop kick people and jumping over people and acting like Superman. I am a little skeptical about that, but whatever. Horror, it's not horror as much as it's action-y. The music is not as good to me as the first one, but there's more money behind this one, so I don't know. Leon looks more rugged here, and I like that because time's going by. Puzzles, no puzzles. Backtracking, not really. Tyrants, there's a tyrant, and I think that's cool. Like, where has the tyrants been all this time? Like, where have the tyrants been? Different perspectives, yeah. Leon, the Russian people, the presidents, and Ada. Corporations, basically the premise of this whole entire situation. There's bioterrorism going on, getting control of a country and whatnot. Action, it was so actiony. This was more actiony than the other one. There was no moment of silence, and if there was, it was immediately like overturned by a jump scare or something. Continuity, Hannigan and all that, Leon and even Ada, they tried to make it like, oh, where we left off. And it's just like, how long ago was that? I don't remember when the last time y'all saw each other. I mean, I know y'all saw each other in 4, but like, I don't know exactly what year that was to what year this is. So it's like, I don't know. It's just, y'all are forcing their relationship too much. I would much rather see Claire together with Leon, but Leon acts like he doesn't like her. I do not want Claire simping for someone who does not like her. Overall story, it's original. I can give it that. It's original. Honestly, there's too many liquors. I'm really sick of seeing these liquors, and the action is like whatever. The story is like whatever to me, honestly. The story is like whatever. When you rely too much on this shoot 'em up, bang 'em up situation in a franchise that wasn't about that to begin with, you start to just feel like you're being disrespected by the people who are making these things. So I'm not really into it. I don't like it. I'm glad I don't have to watch this movie ever again. I really don't want to. I would rather watch Degeneration over and over again than watch this. And even Degeneration has less individuality. It has less of its own identity because it's too tethered to being just like Resident Evil 2, which is a writer problem, which is everyone who was involved in making that problem. It's not women's problem because having less women in this movie, and it's like, yeah, the president's a woman, but they also make it seem like she's like infected with some whatever. Leon doesn't have to be infected with anything in order to be cool, you know, like to do stuff. And Ada as well, she's not, but she also has the pitfall of having to be connected to the hip of Leon S. Kennedy. So she has no individuality. She has no agency of her own because even though she's got a job to do and all that, she always has to sit there and flirt with him at the end of the day. Like, it's super annoying and I'm so sick of seeing it. This movie is a 4 out of 10 to me. It was boring to me. It's action-packed and whatnot, but it doesn't have enough connection to the games for me to be interested in what happens. Hannigan makes a return. I really like that Hannigan makes a return. I thought she was ethnic. I still like the fact that she's here. But I don't understand why she's not ethnic. You have so many white characters. You keep making white characters and then you complain that we're complaining that there are no ethnic characters that even survive. And when they do survive, they go to the long lost island of characters that you don't care about anymore. Even Billy, who, like I said, he could be mixed with something. He's very tall, he's very wide, and he's very durable in Resident Evil 0. And you could have even made a story where it shows that he made it to Raccoon City or he made it somewhere and he went into the Nemesis program, something to where it makes sense that he's so durable. It makes sense. He was already on his way to some training facility. That's why he was in that car when it was attacked in the woods. But all in all, Damnation is not a good movie. 4 out of 10. I don't like it. And even if Leon was taken out of this completely, it's still not a story that resonates with me. The only thing that resonates with me about this is it's in Russia. Like, I think that's a cool thing. I love when it's in different countries. Another thing that's to do with politics, you guys make it about politics. Literally, Resident Evil was based on politics. It was based on corporations acting up. Based on evil residents, evil rich residents. Like, I'm not going to have this conversation. It's laughable and how stupid whoever that person or who said, oh, please don't talk about, please, like, please. What happened to censorship? Because these same people who are talking about get woke, go broke, and talking about leave politics out of gaming are the exact same people claiming censorship when they're trying to scream the N-word somewhere or be racist. Are the same people who indulge in Resident Evil that is about politics. It's about corporations. There are undertones. Like I said, the tyrants represents superiority. Eugenics is talked about constantly. The Ashfords were going to be Nazis, and you took nothing out but saying they were Nazis. We all but can make that inference. Wesker, however, I can argue is not racist. He's just a literal eugenics. It has nothing to do with what we consider race, because if we're really saying what race is, no one is a different race. We are all human. But since we can't say that because everyone associates race and we have already identified the term racism and what that means, we cannot contend with the realities of us actually just being one race. Because we have these, like everyone, like people who make these games, for some reason, Excella from Resident Evil 5 had to be white. Irving had to be white. Sheva had to be light-skinned. Carlos had to never come back. Sheva never talked about again. Implicit biases that have been built upon through social constructs and our media, which constantly reinforce these implicit biases through decisions like these, through decisions like making Leon the forefront of Resident Evil when he wasn't even in the first game. The fact that there are literal accounts, Smurf accounts that were made just recently as Infinite Darkness quickly approaches in a couple of days. These Smurf accounts that were created to not only uplift Leon, but to slander Claire just proves my point about implicit biases. Why did these things happen if not for politics? Not only is this game and this franchise built upon politics for its own story, but you guys have been moving and stepping in every political pothole you could possibly, continuing this cycle. So, like I said before, I'm not saying that Leon should be retired and we should never see him again. What I'm saying is stop pushing him, because he represents something more than just being Leon S. Kennedy. He represents the fact that people want the women, Sheva included, Jill, Rebecca, Claire, to be seen as weak, to be seen as less than. Because they are women, and that's what they think in their minds. And women carry this franchise. This is a patriarchy, honestly. So if you're mad about that, literally step outside and people will metaphorically kiss your feet. So I don't know what to tell you other than that. You can literally go anywhere else, but literally, if not for Lady Dimitrescu, Resident Evil 8 would not have sold as many copies as it did, honestly. Yes. Women rule Resident Evil. If they can understand that making these games, that there are these incels and these loser e-boys that feel this way, they have to acknowledge the fact that this situation's not working. It doesn't literally exist. It's something made socially. It was a social construct. If it can be created, it can be destroyed. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm still here. That's why I like Resident Evil. I'm not going to never pick it up again because of these problems. I'm just going to talk about them and hope that we can change it. I'm sorry that this was not as much Darnation as it was everything else, but I thought it was connected. I believe it's connected, especially the way that these animated movies and shows are going with Leon S. Kennedy. He represents far more than just being some white knight. And I hope to elaborate further on that in not Vendetta, but in Infinite Darkness, because Vendetta already made its bed and is laying in it right now. So all I can do with that is just give an honest review about it. I have to buy it. It's the only one that I've never seen before because I didn't want to. I'm sick of seeing Leon Chronicles. Leon didn't start this franchise. Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield did. I am still waiting for a movie about Barry Burton because it's like he was involved in this franchise long before Leon S. Kennedy was thought of. So it's just very upsetting to me that because of these social constructs, we're being limited to Leon S. Kennedy from now on. And people are claiming it's because he's so popular. Who is he so popular with? There's more than just Anglo-Saxon boys that play Resident Evil. I am a black woman who plays Resident Evil, and I'm sure tons of other black women, Hispanic women, men, all ethnicities around the world know and play Resident Evil. And I can only give you how I feel about it. And it does feel a certain way to know no one that looks like me has been pushed forward like Leon S. Kennedy, who looks like who he is, and how you treat ethnic people and how they all die for the most part. But that's another story for another day. Anyone who has sat here this whole time and listened to my side of the story and comes back with, oh, well, Sheva, look, that one light-skinned black girl, look at her. Look at Carlos, who never returned from Resident Evil 3, which was how long ago? You obviously are not ready for this conversation, and you obviously don't need to be here, and you need to do more research because I cannot get to you. I cannot get through to you. I'm done.